That was a race. Welcome to my reaction to 2024 Brazilian Grand Prix, Sao Paulo Grand Prix, whatever you want to call it. A wet weather race, and I can't believe in my predictions I forgot to talk about a wet weather race. I don't know why I didn't talk about it, because, yeah, we knew coming into the weekend it was a very big possibility that the race is going to be wet, and actually qualifying was so wet that they postponed it for hours and hours and hours, and then finally they just made it on the day of the race as well. They had to postpone that. That was just a red flag in the race as well. I mean, whew, quite the race, quite the weekend. Probably should have talked about wet weather racing in my predictions though. But there's so much to talk about here. But a lot of it is just like factual stuff. Like, oh gee, did you see the part where Norris and Russell and Tsunoda came in? The top three came in, and then there was the red flag. That was crazy. So let's actually talk about my reactions to the actual drivers and their performances this weekend. So Norris was, I think, this one's purely conjecture, but it seemed like Norris was genuinely a bit shaken by how the race weekend went, especially after that red flag. I mean, the McLarens just seemed to lose a lot of pace when the rain started coming down. It was kind of odd, really. Obviously, as Verstappen, jumps the lead basically from them. There was safety cars and there was red flags, so it was a little hard to pin down exactly when it was. But yeah, you could visibly tell his pace started getting a little bit slower. And yeah, on the radio he sounded a little bit annoyed. Not to say that that's like not understandable. Obviously it's understandable, but it is a little disappointing to see he may have not necessarily given up. Yeah, it just seemed like he really was just not on it this race. But neither were the McLaren cars themselves in the rain, so fair enough. Now, Piastri actually, for the most part, did better than I was expecting. Obviously didn't keep his nose completely clean, but, I was pretty happy to see how he performed this weekend, and, it's a rain race at Interlagos, so on the whole, I was pretty pleased with how he performed this weekend. I thought it would be a little bit worse than this, but it was pretty solid, so I was happy with that, actually. Now, unsurprisingly here, I think Lawson has proved himself to be the most complete rookie around, and here he has proved he was easily the best wet weather rookie by a mile. Was pretty happy to see him do so well in the wet like this. I mean, he was just locked right in. Obviously, his overall pace was a little bit less than Tsunoda's for the most part, and then Tsunoda of course got really unlucky with the red flag. So there's that aspect of it as well. But Lawson was still doing his thing. He was still being properly aggressive. His pace was good, and I mean he's really, really making it difficult for Red Bull not to make it, to not make a decision to like they got to make a driver swap next season. I mean, they just have to. Lawson is just too good, and Tsunoda as well. He actually had a pretty solid race. I was happy to see Tsunoda doing well and obviously holding that third position. Made it hard for people to pass him. Had decent pace in the rain as well. Of course, with that qualifying pace was awesome. Yeah, really pleased for Yuki Tsunoda as well. And then he kept his nose clean too, which is great to see finally. But now on to people who didn't have such a fun time. Lewis Hamilton was just completely off this weekend. I mean, I put that poor guy in fifth in my predictions, and as per usual when I put Lewis in fifth, something goes wrong. So, yeah, here he was complaining about the car's setup, about how much it's bouncing, but he also blamed it on the track resurfacing, which is a major issue this weekend. Everyone hates the resurfacing job that was done here at Interlagos. So there's a lot of factors going on, but there is also the sheer fact that Lewis has had trouble with like adapting his driving to these cars. So it's hard to say. Was it the track? Was it his car setup? Was it his inability to adapt to the car? There's a lot of factors going into it. I'm more leaning into the track being the main culprit. I mean, Mercedes they should know by now what makes the cars bounce, right? So it's a little hard for me to believe that they would just give him a setup that would bounce him around like he was on a trampoline. But on the note of Mercedes, I mean, hats off to George Russell. He drove a great race, and that's the reason I kind of call out Lando Norris a little bit for how he drove after the red flag incident. Because Russell just locked in, held his positions well, and was really just flying in terms of pace. People behind him just couldn't catch him. So really happy with his performance this weekend. And of course his raw pace as well was quite good. I would definitely like to double check what the differences between Lewis and Russell's car were exactly, because I mean, yeah, there's a pretty massive difference. And that might help us answer what exactly went wrong for Lewis this weekend. Now, Nico Hülkenberg, he made a silly mistake. He's actually proved himself to be pretty capable of making just like silly little mistakes, like, you know, especially you think about Baku as well. Just another like silly mistake that cost him points, or in this case the race. But overall, you know, I don't really care about that. Haas were just really slow this weekend, it looked like. As soon as the rain started, well, this weekend I should say, as soon as the rain started coming down, yeah, they were just mega slow. They weren't even that great in the sprint either, to be honest. Yeah, their pace was just way off in the rain. It was weird to see. But yeah, it's hard to say because Behrman did not have a clean race whatsoever. So it's hard to say, like, you guys know what I'm saying. It's a little unproven as to, you know, just how fast the Haas car might have been if Behrman kept his nose clean and if Hülkenberg didn't make that silly mistake. Yeah, as far as Ollie Behrman goes, that was definitely a showing of his inexperience, both when it comes to qualifying, how dirty he was in the sprint, and then, of course, extra dirty in the race as well. I don't think he deserved that penalty kind of at all, because it amounted to absolutely nothing. But regardless, this was definitely a great learning experience for him, so props to him, and his pace was ridiculous. In terms of raw pace, that kid was on fire. So, really excited to see him more in the future. Speaking of rookies, though, Colapinto. Finally, I think a properly bad weekend from him. Yeah, he just was not comfortable at all on this track and this car. And then when the rain started falling, he was nowhere near Albon in the rain. So here's a track and a track condition, that being rain, that Colapinto definitely needs to work on. So we finally found a real weakness in him. Not to say he's at Logan Sargent levels, but yeah, this was a pretty poor weekend from him. Still positive things ahead for Colapinto, but definitely a learning experience for him as well, just like Ollie Behrman. Now, Alex Albon, despite his insane pace, he did still prove that he is still quite crash prone. I think one of the interesting statistics from 2023 was actually that Albon cost the team more than Logan Sargent in terms of crash damage. So, yeah, the guy is still very, very much crash prone. Now, yes, it is a wet weather race, so I do not expect everyone to keep their nose 100% clean. But yeah, he just needs to maybe get these crashes under control. Try and learn what's causing these silly crashes, because mostly it's not even really anyone else's fault. It's typically just him making some sort of misjudgment, and then boom, he's off, and he just mullers the cars. Both Colapinto and Albon's cars were just destroyed. So, yikes! Bad day for Williams there. But again, Albon's pace, gotta give hats off to him. Wow, he was quick. Now, speaking of Alpine, look at the car. Yeah, I'm clever. They finally had a really good race and showed their stuff. So, you know, I was listening to the Pierre Gasly interview with Rubens Barrichello. It doesn't really seem like they thought the rain was the key, necessarily. They just more or less thought, like, okay, this is an equalizer for us. Let's show our stuff type of thing. And, you know, the team strategists also worked very hard to make sure that they're going to make it to the end of the race and all that good stuff. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a nerd, but, like, surely their car was simply faster in the rain, right? That's got to be the determining factor here. But of course, Pierre, you know, he's talking about his sprint qualifying as well in the dry, which is totally fair to say that. To bring that up to show that it wasn't just the rain that made them quick. Maybe Alpine really is on an uptick, and I'm really, really happy to see that. Super happy for both drivers, by the way. They deserve this after the season they've had. Actually, the 2 seasons they've had, I'd like to say. And particularly Esteban Ocon, we gotta give, I can't say his name, I don't know why. Ocon, we gotta just give props to the guy, because he did a really level-headed race, very mature, very, very fast pace. Just really happy to see him not crash into Max at turn 1 this time. Yeah, I was just really happy to see him kind of chill out a little bit and just have a really solid race. I was happy for him. Now, speaking of the man himself, Max, jeez Louise, what a race for this guy. I mean, we know he's good at Interlagos. I mean, just watch the 2016 race. But, oh my god, he just monstered this race easily. And I think it kind of goes back to my point from the Mexico video, I believe. Yeah. Where I'm talking about, like, he just doesn't need to be as aggressive as he is on the track, you know? So who cares if you're not going to be P1? Just chill out a little bit, bro. We all know you're the best, and this race just proves it, that he is the best driver right now. And he really does deserve this title. What was the final gap? The gap was like 17 seconds on Ocon. Ridiculous. Absolutely absurdity how fast he was. But again, kind of proves they doesn't need to be so aggressive on the track, because, I mean, if you're the best driver in a solid car, you got a shot at the championship, and in this particular context, he has the championship in the bag if he just keeps his nose clean. And obviously, as I just implied, this is definitely the most important race of the season, all the way around. All the way around. Haas just went way down in the championship. Alpine shot way back up. McLaren went not necessarily significantly down, but Ferrari as well only had 1 point finishing driver because Sainz went off and retired his car as well. So even though Red Bull are they're out of it, they're not going to win the Constructors Championship. This really does mix up the Constructors significantly, and in other ways too, in other places on the list, of course, because Aston Martin, oh my God, 0 pace this weekend, just terrible, just awful. I mean, Lance had a decent wet weather qualifying effort, as he usually does. He's actually pretty good in the wet, but then just loses it on the formation lap. And then Alonso just at the back of the grid for like the entire race. It was so sad. But yeah, Aston's really this was a really bad race for Aston. They've had a lot of races like this recently, but this one also just like proves that they are in dire straits. They can't get any speed out of this car, and like other nearby competitors like Alpine, they can extract a pace from the car. Then of course we have to talk about the Drivers' Championship. If you're a Norris fan, you know, I already showed my stance on this. I think Max does deserve the championship. I think he's driven better overall. He's made way less mistakes than Norris. He does deserve this championship, and I think he pretty much has it in the bag now. This is going to be really hard for Norris to come back from. Verstappen basically just needs to like have 3 absolutely awful races in a row for Norris to have a shot, I feel like, and Norris needs to like P1 fastest lap every single race. It feels like obviously that's not mathematically mathematically sound. I didn't do the maths before this, but easily the biggest loser of this weekend by a country mile was whoever resurfaced this racetrack. Every single driver said this was an absolute travesty. The racetrack was way too bumpy, way too slippery. It was just horrid. It was a horrid racetrack to go around, and it made the wet weather racing even worse, as far as driver testimonials say. So yeah, whoever resurfaced this track, get prepared to give the money back, bro. They got to be careful with this track surface because everybody hated it. And you got to ask, well, if it was the old surface, what would have changed? Would Lewis Hamilton have done better? Would Alonso have done better? Would the McLarens have performed better? Would Russell have beat even better? So there's a lot of little things that, and would so many drivers not have DNF'd out of this race as well? So many questions if they just had the old surface up for this race. Or would it not have made any difference at all? Would it just have been more bumpy? Who knows? But yeah, I think that is about it for my reaction to the 2024 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. What a race! What a season! Let's try not to think about the fact that Las Vegas is next and start crying, because I hate that track. I think it's so boring. But alright, that's it for me. What did you guys think of the race? And thank you guys for watching.